The question in my mind is, how do you create or relaunch a highly profitable and successful 6 to 7 figure business? With so much conflicting advice about the best ways to start and grow your business, how do you get it right the first time? I want to help entrepreneurs make a real difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. My name is John North, and this is the Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs show. Join me today when we dig deep with our guests and get you the best blueprint so you can fast track your own business. This episode is sponsored by Volpreneur.app, your all-in-one online business system. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at startupsecrets.show right now. So let's get into today's episode.
Hi, my name is Christina Kumar, and you are listening to Startup Secrets Show with John North. We are talking about my new book, Take Massive Action, and how to grow your company with awesome PR. Listen in now.
Today's very special guest is Christine Kumar, who's a PR agency and a journalist from Northern California. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, John, for having me.
Cool. And so I was talking before about what you do, and you said that you focus on getting people PR that's already got established PR sort of a reputation. Is that what you normally do?
I've also worked on new businesses, but it's something I enjoy, to take something that actually has a little bit of traction and then launching them more into the stratosphere, like getting there more media.
Okay.
I like doing that.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's quite rewarding when because it's an interesting thing when they appear on media, so particularly for the first time, right? It's like you're talking about writing a book and stuff, and it's all like the very first time you do something like that. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting experience, and there's a lot of new things thrown at you that you have to learn.
Yeah.
But for people who like to multitask, it's exciting.
Yeah. So how did you get into this game in the first place? What were you obviously, how long you've been doing this exactly?
So I've been doing PR for around 5 years. And then journalism, a little bit, I think over 7 years. And then actually authoring my own books. So I've co-authored 5 books so far since last year.
Nice.
And then I fully authored my first book this year, and so I'm doing the pre-launch for that. And I interviewed the inventor of the cell phone, Martin Cooper, for that, and several other interesting people. Greg Reed, he's written books for the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and was honored by President Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, before for his like charity work type things he does for nonprofits and everything like that. So I've included a lot of people I knew in the book, and they're pretty well known, and then also several figures from the past.
Mm-hmm.
So this was really exciting. I've been working with a Georgetown professor in writing this book, so he knows how to create a good book. So I've been taking his advice, and we've been going along.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, that's good. You're doing one thing that a lot of people necessarily don't do, is they go seek the experts out, right? Go and find what other people know. Don't assume you know it, and then try to make it all up yourself. Like in some cases, you're better off leveraging other people and finding out what they know.
Yeah.
For other people. So it's interesting, a lot of these names, like it's with inventions and stuff, a lot of people don't know who invented stuff, right? It's almost like it's either they've been bought out, cheated out of it, or whatever along the way, and they never, they never actually, like McDonald's, the McDonald's brothers sold that franchise for very little money at the time. And so it's quite interesting how you look back at those people who actually invented it, and it wasn't necessarily about the money, was it, when they did it?
It's probably more about the passion and interest and seeing where it goes. But I mean, of course, you want to build money so you can keep it going. But I think to build something great, you have to have passion for it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of big corporations don't really have that passion. It always comes back to one person, right? That's driving it originally. and then, you know, sometimes a corporation will take it over. But the reality is that initial kind of idea is usually very individual. And I think that's one thing about, they talk about AI replacing people, but I think that creating those great ideas is never something a computer could ever do.
I hope not.
No, otherwise we're in big trouble, right?
Yeah.
So give us some, I guess, some ideas about PR. Like, what's the, I guess, the myths of PR? Where do people sort of think? Like, I spoke to a guy yesterday about something, and he said, "Oh, if I get on TV and I can talk about my book, I'll sell lots of books, right?" And I've seen that not work out very well, because the reality is it's a moment in time, right? So you've got that little segment, and then no one ever sees it again. And so, yeah. So do you have some myths of PR that you've come across that people sort of come to you and say, "I want to do this," and you think you've got to be kidding, you're crazy?
I think the hardest PR projects I have to do was ones on a timeline, like, you know, a few day timeline where you really have to panic and get everything together and make sure you get all the right numbers. But I think the easiest ways to do that is to just leverage your network and work together as a team and reach out to all your media connections and have that one goal and never forget that one goal. Like, for example, I was working on a certain casting project for a movie called New Dimensions. Full Circle, the story of the New Dimensions, and we had to get background cast for a casting scene for the movie, a dancing scene, and we needed a lot more people. And so we were able to get on a few different news stations and on radio and podcasts. And then so when the event finally came, we made sure to have, when we were on these news stations, we made sure that the address was put up where we'd be located.
What people forget the basics, right? They actually forget to put the contact details in it.
Yes, the main reason we're there. And basically the location where we're at, websites and all of that, and our go-to action plan, so they know what we want them there for. So then we were able to get the right numbers and everything on the actual day. So that was good.
Because the thing with PR, though, generally speaking, it takes time, right? It's not something that, you know, it's overnight success. Sometimes it takes a long time to build those relationships and get someone to, particularly if you want to get them on TV or something like that, right?
Yes, usually it does. And a lot of people are kind of impatient. They think things need to come overnight and you need to get these big results in a month. PR takes time. It's like a volcano. It needs time.
Yeah, you got to build up to it, right? And I think I think anything worth doing takes time, right? And end of the day, I think sometimes people think that, you know, quick fixes will fix things, but the reality is it's a long game. So what's your most favorite PR sort of medium in terms of getting the best attention, do you think, nowadays? I mean, I think TV, I don't know about TV. It sort of comes and goes, right?
Yeah. So I don't actually watch TV myself.
That's what I'm saying. Like my son's sort of similar, like 21, and he rarely watches TV. And so, and I don't really watch that much anyway, to be honest. I'll probably watch stuff that's on, you know, on replay or stuff like that, but I don't technically sit there and watch TV like they used to. So I don't know who's watching it anymore, but it's not me or you, obviously.
I know, but it is exciting to appear on TV.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right? You appear on TV because it looks good. And you can always say, as seen on TV, right?
Yes, I actually wrote a book with Kevin Harrington. He's the founder of like As Seen on TV, the brand.
Okay.
And so he built that whole brand. He's known as like the father of the infomercial.
Right.
So, and then I heard that his like kids or one of his sons doesn't really watch TV, but that's what he built his whole brand on.
Well, yeah, and I guess the biggest problem is that the internet's kind of replaced the TV in some respects. At some point there, you know, the only way you could get information was TV. You know, the internet, even when it was early days, didn't have much about it. But I think the mediums are now taking it so much on. And in Australia, they had one point there where Facebook decided to turn off media off Facebook altogether in Australia. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, they basically, it's an interesting kind of conversation about should social media like Facebook benefit from the content that's created by the traditional media, like TV show stations and newspapers and stuff like that? Should they benefit from it by embedding links and everything inside it? And then the Australian government said, well, I think we should charge, big media for this. And, so, they'll charge Facebook, and Facebook will pay, the TV station for the content. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook decided to say, okay, we're just going to turn it off then. So they just turned off media altogether in Australia. So suddenly went to Facebook and they turned off all sorts of interesting, they turned off all sites that weren't even related to media. They were turning off charities. They were turning off all sorts of stuff. It was just a mess. And you could see AI just got totally confused about what it was. And then I think the battle went on for about a weekish, and then Facebook just turned it back on again. Because you could see that battle going on between the social media saying they're not media in terms of that a TV station or a newspaper's media. They're not really a media outlet, but the reality is they are reporting it. So it's a real kind of confusing thing, I think, nowadays, is who's really producing media that's real and who's producing media that isn't.
Control your destiny and create a complete business system for your online business. Evolvepreneur.app offers an easy and cost-effective way to build your online business by helping you avoid the pain and stress of implementing multiple systems, giving you the freedom to automate and scale. Support our sponsor by grabbing a free copy of Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs at evolvepreneur.app.
Yes, I agree.
So I think that's part of the problems, I think, is the mistrust. Somehow along the line, they started trusting social media and stopped trusting TV stations. I'm not quite sure how that happened exactly, because at least with if you've got a journalistic background, that, generally speaking, journalists will research the story, make sure fact check it, make sure it's correct. And it's
they used to. I don't know what happened.
I don't think it happens anymore, right? They virtually just say stuff because it's such a tight deadline now. Like, you've got the scenario where people are writing stories and having to get it up as fast as possible. I think that litmus test that goes through is lost.
I think back in the days, a long, long time ago, they used to have more of a kind of detail-oriented background checks of the information they used to put out there. And I think because of these tight deadlines, it's really rare that people do thorough kind of background checks and detail seeking and all that.
I mean, there's a good case in Australia where a few years ago, and because it cost me like $100,000, some journalist wrote a story about a mining company that was deep in debt, and they thought it was going to go broke, a big mining company. And the mining company wasn't an Australian stock exchange, but the stock exchange in Australia got nervous from that story, and the share prices went down dramatically for things like BHP and Rio Tinto, who's here, and they tanked on their prices, and it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost the share market went right down because of that story. And the fact was that story was actually that particular mining company, yes, was in trouble, but everybody knew that, and they'd known that for years. It wasn't like it was news. Mm-hmm. But that particular piece, they grabbed hold of it, and then the whole stock exchange went crumbling down for about a week in the price. So it's like one little mistake, and it's like all he would have had to say in that story was perhaps like it's nothing to do with other countries. It's only this particular, and at the end of the day, it's been known for quite some time. But that almost like some of these people thought it was new news and reacted to it. So
it went trending.
Yes, exactly, and I think that's the change. So what are you? If you take on a client, what's your kind of first? What do you normally notice with a client when you go to do media PR? Because one of the things that we did some stuff with somebody recently, where part of the thing was a weekend where you actually had to figure out your story, tell your story over and over again in terms of getting it really tight, and then be able to pitch it to a TV station or something like that. And very different to what you think, right? Because I think what a lot of people aren't prepared for it in the first place, are they?
I think what works best is if they have a story that's written well and is marketable. That works really good. And then what also works is having good SEO. So when people do Google them, the people you're pitching, they could see some good traction.
Because I see you got Google for Entrepreneurs Award winner. I didn't even know Google did awards. What was that for?
Yeah, so That was a competition, 54-hour competition by Startup Weekend, which was powered by Google for Entrepreneurs, but now they're called Google for Startups.
Okay.
So they changed their name. But yeah, I won first place with my team, and that was pretty interesting. It was 54 hours.
So you had to go 54 hours straight.
Yeah, but you could choose what you do within that 54-hour time. It's not like you're like chained to the desk or something like that. So, but you do have to use your time very, very well, because my team changed our idea on the second day.
Right.
And no one else did that.
You sleep
no
on
one
it,
else.
right?
No one. We were the only one who did that. So we were, but I'm glad we did, because we ended up winning.
Yeah. So you're asking yourself the right sort of questions if you're changing something in that sort of paradigm, aren't you?
Yeah, you do have to like agree on a lot of things as well with your team in those competitions. And also, it's a very competitive nature because there's so many other people competing. But I like the experience. I would say I think I only like it because I won, but
maybe don't. Yeah. It's like would you do it again? Probably not, right? It's like
no, I would want to say yes, but it was very very stressful, like impactful, like but I loved what I learned.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is if you can learn something out of it and then use it in your business. So obviously it's a good learning curve in that respect, because if you are on a time crunch, at least you know how to do it, right?
Could you repeat what you said?
I said, if you're on a time crunch, at least you know what you're doing, right? Like you've had the experience of having to try and do it.
Yeah.
You just don't run around and, mad thing trying to do something and do nothing.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to media or dealing with it, you've got some sort of tips that people should sort of think about when they're dealing with say the traditional media?
I think my biggest tip would be honestly to believe in yourself, because you do have to keep trying to get noticed.
Right? You'll get told no a lot in this game.
Before you get yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm amazing or I have an amazing client. Everyone's going to say yes. It depends on timing and persistence and how you change your message and pivoting or just moving on and then coming back at a later time.
Give it up and say that not going to work for me, or try someone else.
Yeah. And then you can always pivot back.
Okay, makes sense. So what's in store for you next year? Obviously, you're going to bring this book out. Is it on pre-order now, or is it going to be on?
It's on pre-order right now. If people pre-order now, they'll get a lot of perks, which they won't be getting when it's fully published. The pre-orders will get acknowledged in the book. They will also get the signed copy. Otherwise, to get a signed copy, they'll have to meet me in person, which I don't know will be.
Stalk you if I get to know.
I don't know if COVID will allow, in-person signings or anything like that. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. So
throw the book across the room at them, right? So you catch the book.
Yeah. And then they can help me choose the cover and be on my author journey.
Okay. And that's an interesting thing, because we do a lot of book publishing, and what we find is clients want to do all the hard yards, say nothing about their book until it's completely finished and ready to go. And I think that's a mistake. I think if you can engage your audience and start building your readership before you even write the book, then you're going to be so much better off down the track. And they've also felt like they're part of something. And so I think surprising people with a book isn't necessarily the best way to go. If you build up to it, and what you're doing is a great way to do it.
Yes. I'm kind of, I like to do both. It depends, but you will get much more attention and sales if we do it the way you said it. But some people just get too nervous and they want it out and then talk about it, so they can kind of basically give people what they said they'll give them. So you never really know if you're going to finish it or not. Books are pretty hard, so I see why people say. I see why people kind of keep it a secret.
Yeah, because they're scared they might say, open their big mouth and say they're going to write this book and never write it. And I see a few people do that sometimes. They'll actually, I'm going to write this book, and then 2 years later they still haven't done it. And I think it's a sad thing. I think it's probably what you've done, I would imagine, is you've started to do it, started to pull it together, and once you're sort of pretty far into it, then you start that pre-order thing. So you know that it's not like you're starting from scratch. You know you've got a bit of runway there and you can get it done.
It's done, but I'm just going to clean up the details. And basically market it right now, and then have all my supporters help me vote on the cover, and help me kind of just tweak it a little bit, because it's for the readers. So I'm going to get their input, and this is a way to help me with that.
Yeah, and it's the best way to go, because, I mean, if a reader will give you input and they're going to buy the book, that's the main thing. I mean, it's not very good to come up with a great title and cover and then think, well, that's all wonderful, but no one gets it.
Yes, exactly.
So, and the readers, and, the pre-readers are certainly using more brutal than normal, so they'll tell you one thing or the other. So what's the book called?
Take Massive Action.
Okay, cool. All right. It sounds like an action book then.
Yeah, it's getting stories from people who are experts in their fields and figuring out how they exactly took massive action in their lives to get to where they're at. And it's interesting because everyone's story is different.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different way they took action and massive action, and how they implemented their ideas and made it come to life. And it's very interesting. So no one has to do the same thing as everyone else. They can be successful in their own way. Yeah,
makes sense. And I think the whole idea of massive action is a good idea, because at the end of the day, a lot of people will drag things out for years, when the reality is you could probably have got that done in a matter of weeks or less, but you're doing it, you're potentially dragging it out for a reason. And it's probably is like writing a book, you're dragging it out because you're scared you might not be able to write it. And so I think it's, as you say, it's belief in yourself ultimately. It's that you can.
Yes.
So we'll put some links up once with your website and stuff, so we can actually get access to the book and stuff. So depending when the podcast comes out, your book may already be released, who knows? So we'll put all the links up in there. So I really appreciate you coming on, and maybe we'll talk to you again when your book comes out.
Awesome. I would love to.
Cool.
And then I'll pick your brain about your business too. I want to learn.
We can do the same. We can cross-pollinate. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Talk to you again, Christina.
You too. Take care.
That's a wrap on another awesome episode for the Startup Secret Show for entrepreneurs. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we'd be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at startupsecrets.show right now. Until next time, if you're an entrepreneur, make a start on your next great business idea today.